brings us down to the final.
Dominion versus Quacks.
All right.
And before we even start this argument, I say we're gonna do the debate, but we should do it based on the five.
Yes. Let's
Just go straight into the tiebreaker, or not the tiebreakers, but the what we're talking about
yeah.
wise.
Let's just go straight down the list. We'll argue each point. We'll do a very quick argument for each because some of them might not need as long as arguments as the others.
Like the first one, theme.
Theme.
Quacks of
All right, so theme, yeah. I mean, in Dominion, you are expanding your domain. You are trying to utilize the patrons that live in the town.
I'm sorry, I could put a
and-
space theme on Dominion and it still play exactly the same. Quacks at Quedlinburg, you could probably put another theme on it,
Yeah.
but it just fits so well about brewing potions.
Yep, and then it might blow up in your face. Okay, no, I'm just saying that for the sake of what
The
it
argument,
is.
yeah.
Yeah. But Dominion, yeah.
Now, mechanisms, this is going to be tough because I know how well you feel about Dominion. For me, I will take Quacks on this one. The mechanisms, the thing about Quacks of Quedlinburg, when we talk about mechanisms,
Yeah.
we're talking about the best pool building.
Yes.
Everything's out in the open, just like it is in Dominion.
Right. So that's a wash,
why I
as
think
far as that goes.
it does this better, and it's not just in the pool building, but also the push your luck aspect of it, and it does two mechanisms very, very well. Dominion, you're just deck building. You're making your choice of how best to build your deck.
Right.
But the fact is, you're doing the same exact thing in
Quacks
of Quedlinburg. You're trying to build your bag as best as possible as you can go to try to mitigate all the mothballs that are in your bag. But the fact is, it does the exact same thing as Dominion, and then you add on the added layer of the push your luck, which it does really, really well.
Yeah, and what like we brought back with Quacks earlier, and Dominion, I like it better than Quacks, but the fact is, when you have 3 tokens in your bag and one of them is a moth that'll bust you.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there in Quacks, where you're not going to think that in Dominion. You're not going to be like, man, if only I drew the witch right now, I can do that. Like, I know I have like 3 cards left. You might be able to do that, but really that's not the point of it. You're trying to build that. Now, I will say that Dominion has more chances to have like ongoing, like crazy, absurd comboing, but that is contingent on if the shuffling works in your favor. Whereas Quacks, you know
everything is in your bag. You know what you put in there, and it's just what you pull out. So
yeah, so I am going to agree with that with mechanism for Quacks.
Art and production.
Before we get to art and production, because
you want to go meaningful choices?
We know where this is going to go. Let's go to meaningful choices. Quacks, you do only have like the 12 tokens, and
there is more variability, I guess you can say, in Dominion. I will give this to Dominion because, like you said, you know which one it is. The meaningful choices in Dominion is: do I go victory points? Do I build my deck up a little bit better? Do I go? Do I get money this way? I can buy better cards.
And which cards are available to me in that particular game? Yeah, I mean, if Dominion only had like 10 Kingdom cards and you played the same one over, then it wouldn't be a question. It would be Quacks. But Dominion, because of that variability. And then replayability, I think the same way. It also does go to Dominion because of that.
Yes and no.
The multiple amounts of cards. The 25
the multiple amounts of cards are really good, and it changes. Right. But in the base game itself, you play with 10 cards, and there's 25. So there's not a lot of variance because there's certain cards that you need out there all the time, right?
Right. Where... no. Well, yeah. I mean, the gold, silver, and coppers, yeah, and then the estates, duchies, and provinces, the victory points, and the money, yes. But the 10 kingdom cards are entirely variable, and they even include randomizer cards in it. But
what's funny about how you and me debate replayability? You think replayability basically how it changes the game and gives you something different.
Yeah.
I think replayability how it's going to get back to the table. And honestly, I remember the first time we played Quacks of Quedlinburg, the only reason we didn't play a second game right after the first one is because it was late at night.
Yeah. No, but I mean, if you play 10 games of Dominion in a row, right, the games are going to be vastly different versus 10 games of Quacks. It's the same thing every game.
Yes and no. It just depends because a lot of it is how you build your bag, and
Well, no,
you know me.
your game will be
Yeah,
played differently, but
exactly.
it's
Yeah,
the same game.
I'll
It's
give you Dominion on
right.
this one
And that's
because
because we
you're
know where
just
art
trying
and
to get
production.
points.
No, I want it to be more of a even stretch until right at the end instead of just straight up getting it to Quacks
Art and production,
because
Quacksilver.
Quacks and Quedlinburg, yeah, because the art
Honestly, for what
what
it is,
now
Dominion is a pretty game. Don't get me wrong; it's
as
got
far
some
as
decent
arguing
artwork.
goes, as far as let's just argue this for a second. We agree, but let's argue art and production for a minute. Quacks of Quedlinburg, those cardboard tokens, they're gonna start failing, and that's
Yes, they
why
are.
everybody chooses to upgrade. Now, on the same side of that,
If you
some
play
of
enough
the
Dominion, the cards on Dominion are going to start.
they're gonna wear out as well. They have black borders, and they're not a standard card size. They're more of like a Euro size, so you have to get special sleeves here in America. And they about 3 or 4 sets ago they went to a different publisher, and the cards were slightly shorter.
Oh man, that's even worse. But just art wise,
But
Dominion has some decent art on there. Don't get me
yeah,
wrong, but it's that generic
right. They
medieval
they've done enough ugly in that game that the production in Quacks of
and
Quedlinburg
just
just
the
goes to it.
colors in Quacks and Quinlanburg are beautiful.
Yeah, the color scheme
And then
alone.
the production part of it, both of them are going to have their issues. I love the player boards that are in Quacks of Quinlanburg. They're pretty nice.
Yeah,
The chits, yeah, like the upgraded components that you can buy for it are beautiful.
yeah. Well, you can't buy upgraded components for it. I no. Well, Dominion does have metal tokens too, and those are pretty fantastic.
Yeah, they're nice. Don't get
But
me wrong. You know I love
yeah,
me some metal coins.
yeah. And the metal shield tokens for victory points, those are cool. But
And
anyway,
so, just for everybody to know out there, Quacks of Quedlinburg won 3-2.
yep,
Even if it went to a tiebreaker,
right.
Quacks of Quedlinburg would have won this because
32 to
it's not
22
even
victory points.
close.
No, Quacks clearly ran it up there, and I do
And I
like
know a lot of
Dominion
people are saying,
better, but I
"Hey, cool to
understand.
the new, all this and that," but Quacks of Quedlinburg just scratches that itch that people want for like pool building, but it also gives you. And people say they don't like push your luck, but Quacks and Quedlinburg proves that a lot of people do like push your
Right.
luck because it's that stress that you get from it, but it's a good stress. Like, ooh, do I want to pull this just in case I bust? But yeah,
Yeah.
it's the same way why people enjoy blackjack over poker.
Right.
I'm one of them. Do I want to hit off of 15 or do I want to stay seeing that he's got a 17, which they're going to end up staying? So I'm going to have to hit. I'm going to have to push my luck and hopefully see what comes up. And
Sure.
I get that from Quacks.
Yep. Yeah, I don't disagree. Man, we had some upsets in this though. Dice Forge almost
Over
unseated
Orleans.
over Orleans. It almost unseated Dominion.
Almost, yeah.
Almost, yeah. I mean, it was definitely a lot closer than I thought it was going to be.
So, for my personal taste out of this, I think Quacks of Quedlinburg is the right choice for the win. I think Dice Forge should win over Dominion. I have had way more people love Dice Forge than I've seen people play Dominion.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, Dominion's not a horrible game as I was making it out to be, but I don't like it. And it's just because Dominion wasn't the first deck builder I played. I played other deck builders, and then I went back to Dominion, and I see like, okay, this is where this got it. This is where this came from. Okay, I understand it, but it just didn't scratch that itch that say a legendary would have did because the legendary I believe was the first deck builder I've ever played.
I wanna point out some of the comments that we got in Facebook that goes into what you're saying. The very first comment that we got was Dominion is unparalleled. It's by Harley Winfrey. Dominion is unparalleled variety. Star Realms and Orleans are both all-time favorites of mine, and I like Quacks and Clank too, but Dominion is number one. But then a couple posts down the line, Ryan Fournier, he pointed out, always makes me sad to see Dominion ranked so high. This game is so very meh. Maybe when it came out, it was good, but clearly I'm in the minority. And then Travis New Hero point out, I've only recently played it early last year and the year before that. I also found it quite ... lackluster. I'll be willing to play the game again. It was a Goodwill copy so a lot of missing cards, and used the stacks that still had at least 8 cards. Not the fairest of chances. I did like how you can chain actions together. The effects themselves and gameplay loop wasn't too fun for me. And then again, Ryan Fournier said, "I'm glad I'm not the only one." And they had a lot of good points too with that. Like, and then Kurt White said after that, "Every other deck builder I've played is more fun than Dominion." So,
and I'm in that boat, but I think it's a testament to the fact that Dominion is so high. Yes, I've heard there's been other deck builders. Dominion's what really put it on the map. Like not deck builders in the way we think, but there was cards where you can build or games that you could build your deck.
Right.
Dominion did the mechanic that we know deck building now. Whereas you start with so many cards, you play those cards, you discard those cards, you buy cards, you put it in your discard pile, right, and then hopefully it comes back. But I think what's going on with this one is what's keeping Dominion so high, and it's a decent game, is the fact that it's nostalgia. A lot of like the old time gamers, and then there's you, who like the most themeless, boring, colorless games out there.
I appreciate the mechanisms, which is why I was able to give it to Quacks, regardless of art and production value. It really was. It's a solid mechanism.
I am in that cult of the new kind of mentality because to me, a table presence will get me to stop and be like, "Ooh, what game is that?" And I can respect the mechanisms. Don't get me wrong. Worker placement's one of my favorite mechanisms, and it's simple. You put a worker out, you do something. Oh
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go.
I was gonna say, like, if you had to pick top 3 out of the 8 that we debated, how would you rank it?
Out of the 8 that we debated,
mine would probably be Dominion, Star Realms, then Quacks. And that's
to me, if we take out Star Realms and put Hero Realms, and that might make it into the top 3. Star Realms by itself won't, and it's just because Hero Realms. I know I go generic fantasy and make fun of it a lot, but I mean Star Realms is generic sci-fi. But Hero Realms, adding the player packs, the Archer, the Barbarian, the Rogue, the Barbarian. Yeah, it's generic, but they make your cards a little different, and that's why I would choose Hero Realms. But if I'm going off of what we argued here, I would go Quacks would probably be number 1, and it's something I do want to own because it's just that push your luck. I think it would go down really well, and it plays decently quick. It's like 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's a quick game.
Dice Forge would probably be number 2 for me, just because, again, I've had so much fun playing Dice Forge with so many people. We talked about it earlier, how Silver and Gold was that one game that you showed people that everybody wants.
Yeah.
To me, Dice Forge was that game.
Yeah.
I showed it to you. You ended up wanting to get it. I showed it to our friend Bryce. He ended up getting it, and I showed it to a couple of other people, and they ended up getting it. So
yeah.
And then the third one, out of everything here, I would have to say Hogwarts.
Oh, okay.
Just because Legendary, again, same reason with Star Realms, Encounters, hands down, is the legendary system I would play.
Yeah.
But Hogwarts Battle, I've gone through the campaign. We're going through the first expansion. I am going to pick up the second expansion. The first expansion is just redonkulous hard. We haven't even beat a game 1 in the expansion, and it's because how hard it is. And my big issue with the way the expansion is, and I understand why they did it, they took away what you built up in the other games and basically reverted you back to like your 4th or 3rd year.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, so it's hard, but I'm enjoying what we're doing in it, and so that's why I would choose Hogwarts.
Yeah, I can't wait to get Toy Story back to the table. Maybe I'll have my son play it with me.
All right, so just to recap real quick before we go into what's coming up in the next couple of weeks, I kind of touched on it a little bit while Danny took his little break.
Yep.
But for podcast purposes, this way we can talk about it. Quacks of Quedlinburg is the best in our debate here, is the best of the deck bag pool building category.
All right. I completely agree. Quacks won it out. after a long or actually Quacks, that wasn't a very hard battle for his.
Yeah, no, Quacks kind of just steamrolled its way into the finals.
Right. Like Dominion fought hard, but it ultimately surmised to Quacks.
And just so people can understand about Quacks, even if it went into a tiebreaker, Quacks of Quedlinburg has a 10-vote lead over Dominion. It's 32-22 on this poll. So
wow, yeah, that's not insignificant. That's the largest range of first and second that we.
I think the last one we talked about, it was only like a 5 or 6 vote swing. This one is a 10-point swing. Right. It's the highest one we've seen so far.
All right, so then next Wednesday we're going to be starting another segment of the Everyday Board Gaming Podcast, or Everyday Board Games Podcast, and it will be specifically our topic that we're going to be talking about. Last week was most influential games. We're trying to come up with something that we don't feel like has been
outside of gaming, most influential outside of gaming
for in the non-gaming world. And so now. This week we're going to be talking about games for trips, so you can plan as soon as we're allowed to leave our house again and go on trips and have fun. What games are going to be best for it? And there's a lot of ways to take it. We're going to leave it vague right now. As far as
and it's 3 games per person. We'll probably put a post in. Right now, we've only been doing it in one board game group on Facebook. Yep. We probably will start doing it at least one more, maybe 2.
Agreed. And our next top 8 debate, what is that going to be, Daniel?
So our next top 8 debate is actually twofold. So our next 2 Fridays are going to be the same top 8 debate, where we're going to be talking about the best intellectual property games. However, the way Board Game Geek distinguishes IP games is under movies, TV, and radio. So you have, that's going to be next week. We're going to talk about the top IP movies, TVs, and radios. And then the following week, we're going to talk about the top IP games based off novels. Yep. And what's going to happen here is whoever wins the TV IP, and we'll go through the list of games real quick just for you to understand what's going on. Whoever wins that, after we finish the novel debate, we will debate the TV movie champion versus the novel champion, which is the better of the IP games.
Should we, and this is just a hypothetical for you, should we stop at the top 2 for each of those categories and then have a top 4?
I think it's better where we can just go the TV, this is what won the TV, this is won the novel, now which one do we think is the better? This way we could say, this is what happened here, this is what happened here, and then this is where we're going. Instead of having the top 4. Huh?
That'll be a very short debate.
Not yet. Well, it'll be a short debate between the TV and the novel. But so and we're only going to talk about next week's polls just for everybody to get reference, and we're going to make a poll and stuff like that. Next week's topics are for movies and TVs is the number 1 seed Star Wars X-Wing versus the 8 seed Ghostbusters the board game. The number 2 seed Hogwarts Battle.
There it is again.
Eventually, it's going to get out of the first round versus the number 7 seed Thanos Rising. Okay. The number 3 seed is Firefly, the board game. Not the Adventures and Turncoats that recently came out, but the pick up and deliver version that was
the original one.
Early teens?
Yeah, by Gale Force 9.
Yeah. And then that's going to go up against the 6 seed Disney Villainous, so that's going to be a tough bracket right there because both of those games are really good. Spoiler alert. And another tough bracket for us here is the 4 and 5 seed, which faces Horrified versus Star Wars Outer Rim.
Talk about tough. Oh, man.
And so just for people to reference, before we call this a day, yes, there's 2 Star Wars games in here. And the reason why we allowed this, per se, is because they play differently. If it was, like if Armada somehow snuck into the top 8, I wouldn't consider it because how high X-Wing is anyways. And they're pretty much the same game. They're just, one's on a bigger scale.
Right, exactly. That's one of our delineating factors is that we specifically chose. And once again, it's ones that we both have, that we both have played. And one of the factors is I don't watch many movies. So I do want to clarify that, is that we end up going into like a number of hundreds to find the top 8. So, I mean, that's
just how it is. What's funny, it was actually easier to make the novels bracket than it was for us to do the movies bracket.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
So I think we only went through 2 pages in the novels bracket.
Something like that. Yeah, it wasn't many at all. It was not an extreme one. So that's something to look forward to for the next week. Games for Trips will be on Wednesday, so come tune in on Wednesday to join in on the discussion, as well as join us next week on Friday for our next top 8 debate, the highest ranked movie, TV, or radio games. With that being said, this has been the Everyday Board Gaming Podcast. My name is Daniel.
And my name is Daniel. Have a good one.
And thanks for tuning in.